I never thought my Harvard medical degree would be overshadowed by an apron. But my sister-in-law Diana had a special talent for putting me in my proper place. The autumn evening had started normally enough, with me rushing to her dinner party straight from the hospital after a complicated surgery. "Oh, Sarah, you're finally here." Diana's perfectly painted lips curved into what others might mistake for a smile. She stood in her marble foyer wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than a month of my student loan payments. "We're in quite a pickle. Our serving staff is short tonight." I glanced down at my simple black dress, chosen specifically to be appropriate for both work and the dinner party. "Diana, I just finished a 12-hour surgery. I came because James asked me to." Yes. She waved her hand dismissively, already pulling an apron from a nearby drawer. "And we're all very impressed with your little career. But right now, I have 20 of Boston's most influential people in my dining room, and I need help serving drinks." The word little hung in the air between us. Despite being one of the youngest department heads in Mercy General's history, Diana had always treated my career as some cute hobby. In her world, marrying well was the only real achievement worth noting. The fact that I had chosen medicine over pursuing a wealthy husband like she had was an ongoing source of disappointment. "Here," she thrust the apron at me. "The wine needs to be poured, and the caterers are overwhelmed. Just help out for an hour, then you can join us properly." I should have said no. I should have reminded her that I was her husband's sister, not her servant. But James's pleading voice from our earlier phone call echoed in my mind. "Please come, Sarah. You know how Diana gets about these parties. I need at least one sane person there." So I took the apron. The dining room was a scene from old money Boston. Crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, and people who considered their family trees more important than their accomplishments. Diana's friends sat around the massive table, their jewelry catching the light as they laughed at inside jokes. "Oh, wonderful," Diana announced as she guided me in. "Everyone, we have extra help for tonight. Sarah will be assisting with the wine service." A few guests glanced my way with the same dismissive look they might give actual waitstaff. Others didn't bother looking up at all. Only Margaret Chen, Diana's closest friend, gave me more than a passing glance. "Isn't that your sister-in-law?" she asked, loud enough for others to hear. "The one who works at the hospital." Diana's smile tightened. "Yes, Sarah does something in medicine. But she's being absolutely precious helping out tonight. Now let's discuss the fundraiser for the new wing at the country club." I moved around the table, filling wine glasses while trying to ignore the conversations washing over me. These were the same people who would be fawning over me if they needed medical care. But tonight I was invisible, just another servant in their world of privilege. "My Thomas is becoming quite the success," Margaret announced as I filled her glass. "Youngest partner at his law firm. Of course, we always knew he was destined for greatness." Speaking of success, Diana chimed in. "Did you hear about the new neurosurgeon at Mercy General? Apparently, he's revolutionary. Single too, from what I hear." I nearly spilled the wine. They were talking about Dr. Matthews, my new colleague who had just transferred from Johns Hopkins. I had actually trained him on our department-specific protocols last week. "Oh, we must introduce him to your Olivia," another guest suggested. "She's been looking for someone established." "I heard he's quite handsome," Diana added. "Not at all like what you'd expect from a brain surgeon. You know how those medical types usually are, all work and no sophistication." The irony might have been funny if it weren't so frustrating. I was about to move to the next guest when James, Diana's husband, stood up suddenly, his face contorted in pain. I don't feel," he stammered before his wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. James's left side appeared to go slack, his speech slurring as he tried to speak. He started to collapse, and I dropped the wine bottle, moving to catch him before he hit the ground. "Someone call 911. Diana screamed, her perfect hostess facade cracking. "Is there a doctor?" Margaret's voice rose in panic. "Does anyone know a doctor?" I was already loosening James's tie, checking his pupils and vital signs. "I'm a doctor," I said firmly, my training taking over. "I'm Dr. Sarah Parker, head of neurosurgery at Mercy General, and your husband is showing signs of an acute stroke." The room fell silent except for James's labored breathing. Diana stood frozen, her face pale as she watched me work. The apron was still tied around my waist as I barked orders with the authority of someone used to running an oar. Margaret, call 911 and tell them we have a probable stroke victim. Diana, I need his medication list. Now, my voice carried the weight of years of emergency medicine. And someone get me my bag from the foyer. I have a medical kit in it. As the party guests scrambled to help, I caught Diana's eye. The woman who had been so quick to hand me an apron now stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. But I had no time for her revelation. My brother-in-law needed a doctor, not a waitress, and that's exactly what I was about to be. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air, and I knew this dinner party was about to become very different from what Diana had planned. Sometimes life has a way of rearranging the seating chart, and tonight I was finally taking my proper place at the table. The next 48 hours were a blur of hospital corridors and medical decisions. James had suffered an ischemic stroke, and while my position meant he received immediate top-tier care, hospital policy prevented me from being his primary physician. Still, I coordinated with Dr. Matthews, yes, the same eligible bachelor they'd been discussing at dinner, to ensure James received the best possible treatment. Diana haunted the private waiting room like a designer-clad ghost, her perfect makeup gradually fading as the hours wore on. The confident socialite had been replaced by a terrified wife who could barely keep her hands from shaking. Her friends filtered in and out, bringing expensive coffee and making awkward attempts at conversation. Dr. Parker, Dr. Matthews approached me as I reviewed James's latest scans. The clot-busting medication is working well. His prognosis is good, thanks to your quick recognition of symptoms. I nodded, my professional mask firmly in place. Thank you, Mark. I'd like to review the rehabilitation plan when you have a moment. Of course, he paused, glancing at Diana, who was pretending not to eavesdrop. I heard an interesting story about how you diagnosed him while serving wine. Before I could respond, Margaret Chen's voice cut through the waiting room. Oh, Sarah. I mean, Dr. Parker. She rushed over, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. I feel absolutely terrible about the other night. If we had known you were actually the Dr. Parker everyone's been talking about. The one who pioneered that new stroke prevention technique? Dr. Matthews added helpfully, clearly enjoying the situation. Margaret's face flushed. Yes, well, we just. Diana always said you worked at the hospital, but we assumed. You assumed I was a nurse? Or perhaps an orderly? My voice was professionally neutral, the same tone I used when explaining complicated procedures to nervous patients, because I didn't arrive in a luxury car or wear designer labels. The waiting room had grown very quiet. Diana had stopped pretending not to listen and was now openly watching the exchange. Her usual social armor had cracked, revealing something that looked surprisingly like shame. Sarah, she started, then corrected herself. Dr. Parker, could we talk privately? I followed her to a quiet corner, noting how out of place she looked in the hospital setting. Her expensive perfume couldn't quite mask the antiseptic smell that permeated everything here. James is asking for you, she said quietly, not as his doctor, but as his sister. Would you? I nodded, already moving toward his room. James lay propped up in bed, monitors beeping steadily around him. His left side showed typical post-stroke weakness, but his smile was strong when he saw me. There's my little sister, he managed, his speech slightly slurred. Still saving my ass after all these years. Someone has to. I perched on the edge of his bed, falling easily into our familiar banter. Though next time, try something less dramatic than a stroke at dinner. A sprained ankle would suffice. His expression grew serious. Diana told me about the apron, the serving. I'm so sorry, Sarah. It's not your fault. No, but I let it happen. All these years, I've let her treat you like you were somehow less than us, when the truth is, he gestured to the hospital room, to the machines keeping track of his vital signs. You're the one doing something that actually matters. The door opened before I could respond, and Diana stepped in hesitantly. She changed into more casual clothes, though her version of casual still probably cost more than my car payment. The nurses are talking about you, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. They call you the miracle worker of the neurology department, said you've saved more lives than anyone can count. I'm just doing my job, Diana. No, she shook her head. You're doing so much more than that. And I've been horrible to you. For years, because you didn't fit into my idea of what success looks like. James reached for her hand with his good arm. Honey. Let me finish. She took a deep breath. Yesterday, when James collapsed, all my influential friends, all our social connections, they meant nothing. But you knew exactly what to do. You saved him. And I had you serving wine. The monitors beeped steadily in the background as Diana's words hung in the air. Years of subtle put-downs and social slights seemed to float between us, slowly dissolving in the harsh hospital lighting. There's a fundraiser next month, Diana continued, for the hospital's new stroke center. I'm on the planning committee. Would you consider being our keynote speaker? Not as my sister-in-law, but as Dr. Parker, head of neurosurgery. I looked at James, saw his encouraging nod, and turned back to Diana. I'll speak, but I have one condition. Anything? No aprons allowed. For the first time in our entire relationship, Diana laughed, a real laugh, not her usual social titter. Deal. Though I should warn you, Margaret is already telling everyone how she's personally friends with the famous Dr. Parker. Apparently, she's forgotten she spent 3 hours last week trying to set you up with her gardener because she thought you needed to aim within your means. James chuckled, then winced. Easy on the jokes. Laughing hurts. Sorry, big brother. Doctor's orders, no laughing at social karma for at least a week. As if on cue, Dr. Matthews appeared for his rounds. Diana straightened up, clearly remembering her dinner party plans for him and her friend's daughter. But before she could say anything, a young resident rushed in. Dr. Parker, we need you in the ER. Multiple trauma coming in from a car accident. I was already moving. Keep an eye on this one, I told Dr. Matthews, gesturing to James. He likes to downplay his symptoms. Don't worry, Mark grinned. I learned that from you during orientation last week. I caught Diana's stunned expression as I rushed out, clearly realizing that her eligible bachelor had actually been my trainee. Some revelations, I decided, were best served without wine. 1 month later, I stood at the podium of the Boston Medical Benefit Gala, addressing a room full of the city's elite. The same people who had watched me serve wine now sat in rapt attention as I discussed the latest advancements in stroke treatment and prevention. James sat in the front row, his recovery progressing well. Diana was beside him, actually taking notes as I spoke. She had thrown herself into stroke awareness advocacy with the same enthusiasm she once reserved for social climbing. Turns out, she was quite good at it when she focused on the cause rather than the connections. And that's why early recognition of stroke symptoms is crucial, I concluded. Time is brain, as we say in neurology. The faster we act, the more lives we save. Thank you. The applause was genuine, and as I stepped down from the stage, I was immediately surrounded by the same socialites who had once looked through me, but now their questions were about brain health and warning signs, not about my marital status or fashion choices. Dr. Parker, Margaret Chen approached, looking appropriately contrite. That was fascinating. Though I must admit, I'm still mortified about, well, everything. Water under the bridge, I assured her. Though I hear your son Thomas is now dating Dr. Matthews' sister. Funny how things work out. She had the grace to blush, remembering her attempts to match him with various socialites. Before she could respond, Diana clinked her glass for attention. I'd like to propose a toast, she announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom, to my sister-in-law, Dr. Sarah Parker, not just for saving my husband's life, but for teaching me that true worth isn't measured by social status or bank accounts, but by the lives we touch and the differences we make. She turned to me, tears glinting in her eyes. I spent years trying to make you fit into my world, never realizing that your world was so much bigger and more important than dinner parties and social hierarchies. I'm proud to be your sister-in-law and even prouder to call you my friend. The room raised their glasses, and I saw genuine respect in their eyes. James winked at me from his seat, his left side showing marked improvement from his physical therapy. Later that evening, as the gala wound down, Diana pulled me aside. I have something for you, she said, handing me a small box. Inside was her grandmother's antique brooch, the one she'd always said would go to a proper member of the family. Diana, I can't. Yes, you can, she insisted. It belongs with someone who brings honor to the family name. And trust me, you've done that more than anyone. I closed my fingers around the brooch, feeling the weight of more than just gold and gems. Thank you. No, she smiled. Thank you for showing me what real success looks like. As we walked out together, I caught our reflection in the ballroom mirrors, two women who had finally found common ground in the most unexpected way. Sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal the truth about people, and sometimes the person serving your wine might just be the one who saves your life. I touched the brooch, now pinned to my dress, and smiled. No apron required,